These three drivers all share some very key characteristics. They all run on 20-volt battery platforms, they all have brushless motors, they all have lights to illuminate when you're working in dark areas, and they're all about the same size and they put out very similar power figures. They also share one other key characteristic. Despite the fact that these all wear different branding, they're emblazoned with different logos, they have different paint jobs, they are all made by the same company, Stanley Black & Decker. So my question is why? Why does one company sell the same product 3, 4, maybe even 5 different ways? Is this just a case of simple brand engineering, or are there some real differences between these drivers? So here is the plan for today. We are going to take a deeper look at these three drivers and see what makes them the same and then what makes them different. We'll start with surface level features and functions that are different between them, and then we're gonna do a deeper dive into them, tear them apart, and see just how much part sharing is going on here. And we also might talk a little bit about why a big company like Stanley Black & Decker would create so many various sub-brands to sell what is potentially the same driver. I think first we gotta address the Porter Cable tool, because I didn't even know that Porter Cable had a 20-volt cordless platform, and I also didn't know that they made impact drivers. I actually bought this tool specifically to make this video. I think it was 220 bucks on Amazon. At first blush, I can actually see that it might be closer to the DeWalt DCF 886. The last generation of impact driver. You can see that the chuck here at the front is very similar. Oh, and in case you're wondering how I got this Midnight Blackout Edition DeWalt impact driver, I actually made it myself and I did a whole video on it that you can check out here. So the very first thing I noticed when I started handling this tool is that the battery indicator is down on the bottom of the tool here. Really quickly, I realized that this is just a dumb design. The very first thing you do when you take a battery out of storage is you check the battery level on it to make sure it's got charged before you bother putting it in the gun. This just adds an unnecessary steps. Another thing that I noticed is that the battery is spring-loaded. There's actually a couple little springs here in the handle that push the battery forward as soon as you release it. It definitely feels very satisfying to do, but I could also see this being a little bit of a hazard if you're on top of a ladder or something like that, and you pop the battery out and it just flies right out of the tool and down onto the ground. One thing that I do really like about this driver is that it's got an extra bit holder here. As a Canadian, I am constantly switching between Robertson and Phillips head drivers depending on what fasteners I'm using. So having the ability to store an extra bit here is really handy, and I wish all of these tools here had it. Oh, one other little thing that I noticed is that on the Porter Cable tool, the LED light is down here on the bottom of the handle, as opposed to both the DeWalt and the Craftsman, where the LED light is closer to the bit. I actually much prefer this style. I find it provides way better illumination, especially because these LED lights aren't really that powerful. So yeah, that's about it for the Porter Cable. Actually, no, one other thing. This is a DeWalt charger. This is a Craftsman charger. And then this is the Porter Cable charger. As you can see, the Porter Cable charger is quite a bit smaller than either of the others. I can see there being some advantages and some disadvantages to this as well. I think disadvantage number one is probably that this doesn't charge nearly as quickly. This is 20 volts at 1 amp, so that means that it's a 20-watt charger. Output 4 amps, so this is an 80-watt charger. This is 6 amps at 20 volts, so 120 watts. So this is 6 times faster than this one. The other disadvantage is that you can't wall mount, at least not easily, that Porter Cable charger the way I have with this DeWalt charger right here. This is really handy, especially in a job site or a shop setting, but I guess it does kind of bring me around to the one advantage of that little charger. If this is gonna be a tool that you don't really use that often, you just keep around the house for occasional use, small charger like this is actually kind of handy because you can just tuck it in a drawer and it doesn't take up that much space. So now let's move on to talking about the differences between the Craftsman and the DeWalt. Primarily, the one thing that you'll notice right away is that the DeWalt has this switch here for controlling the amount of torque that it delivers. This is actually really handy if you're doing something like assembling IKEA, because you can limit it and you won't snap any fasteners. Outside of that, I don't know, not much really. I think the DeWalt comes with a clip from the factory, whereas the Craftsman does not. And yeah, that's about it. I can't think of anything different between these two. They even feel like they're the exact same weight. Now let's talk about the similarities. And spoiler alert, there's a lot of them. The first thing I noticed is that the trigger on all three of these feels exactly the same, looks exactly the same outside of a different dye they used in the plastic. And the forward and backward indicators, well, not physically identical, are in the exact same location, and they feel identical too. Another thing that I noticed is that the screws for all four of these drivers are pretty much in the exact same position, and the vents for the motor in the tool is also in the exact same position. Yeah, there's just a lot of physical similarities between these tools. Which leads me to believe that once we tear these guys open, we're gonna find that there's a lot of part sharing going on. So, what do you say we do that? All right, well, I guess the first thing we should do is pop all of our batteries out so I don't get shocked while I'm doing this, right? Last but not least, the one that pops out, that is very satisfying. I do like that feeling. Now, I really want to emphasize this again. All of these screws are like in the exact same spot. This screw's the same, this one's the same, this one's the same. I mean, I feel like they start with the same CAD model and then they just kind of change things a little bit on the outside. Here's another thing that's similar between all these tools. They all use the exact same screws to put them together. I guess that shouldn't be any surprise given the fact that they're all in the same location. At least I don't have to worry about separating these screws because they could all be interchangeable. I should check to see if they're all made in the same place. I didn't even think about that. Made in China. Made in China, made in Mexico, made in Mexico. Interesting, so not all made in the same place. Oh, they've got a little tricky, I've disassembled my tool, don't give me warranty trick on there. Interesting. Oh well, now that we've got all our screws removed, we can start taking these shells apart. Yeah, they just pop off a little something like that. Oh, this one's dirty. Look at that, that is gross on the inside. All right, but you look at that. On first blush, they seem very similar on the inside. I mean, very similar. So a couple things that I noticed right away. The motor looks extremely similar. Can I find a parts number anywhere on this thing? There we go. Physically, these look identical. Oh, here we go. Here's a number. PA86 GF33. I'm getting old, guys. I need glasses now. PA66 GF33. So slightly different model number. Going into this back connector here, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wires. Yes, exact same thing here. Yeah, I'm gonna go out on a big limb here and say that this is the same motor between the Craftsman and the DCF 887 DeWalt. Okay, let's take a quick look over here at the 886, and this is actually a different motor. Not much different, mind you, but there are some small cosmetic differences between it. What about the Porter cable? Porter cable is actually a little different. PA66 GF33. That's the same as the DeWalt, right? Yeah, 33, okay, interesting. The front bell housing that has the quick release chuck looks a little bit different on the Porter cable, but the actual motor here at the back is identical. I wasn't really expecting that because they do have slightly different power outputs. I was expecting that they all had different motors. So I wonder if the difference in output is related to the amount of voltage that gets sent from the battery to the tool or some other small change. I mean, also these front bell housings are all a little bit different. So there could be some gearing in there that's counting for the difference. Okay, so now looking down at the triggers, there are some differences to be seen here, actually. They seem to follow a similar design philosophy, but you got different connectors for the LED light. You have different connectors sending power from the trigger to the motor. But then if I come over here to the Porter cable driver, this seems to be running the same trigger and grip setup as the DeWalt. So that's interesting. The LED connector is even the same, but they route the wires in different ways. So this one goes up to the head of the impact driver, whereas this one goes down to the grip with a longer wire. So moving down to the battery connector, there are some differences to be seen here, but nothing too crazy. So obviously the DeWalt with the variable torque setting dial thingy here has this breakout daughter board for that, whereas the older one doesn't. This connector that connects your battery appears to be identical. It has the exact same number of power leads coming off it. Coming over here to the Craftsman, this is interesting. The DeWalt has 4 wires going down to the battery connector, but the Craftsman only has 3. Looks like this third or second pin, depending on your orientation here, is just a dummy pin and doesn't actually do anything. It's not connected to anything inside the tool. 3 wires going to the Porter cable battery connector. However, there's also this 4th wire here that's just not connected to anything, which makes sense actually, because the Porter cable grip or handle piece is the same as the one from the DCF 887. And that has a 4th wire that goes down to the battery connector. So literally all they've done is just clip that wire and put a little cap on it, I think. How interesting. I wonder what that 4th wire does on the DeWalt. And then again, on the Porter cable here, you have the daughter board that has the control for the battery indicator. Flipping these guys over is interesting because we actually get some part numbers here. 2014, oh man, was this tool made in 2014? Is that how old that is? N441766, N449266. So technically these are different part numbers, but you would have a very hard time telling them apart. I wonder if the different part numbers just to account for things like the clipped connector and the differently colored trigger. So look at that, isn't that interesting? There is very clearly quite a bit of part sharing that is going on between all of these drivers, but it's not necessarily in the way that you would expect. Like the DCF 887 has the same grip as the much newer Porter cable impact driver, and that has a different grip than the Craftsman impact driver that was made around the same time. But I think we can all agree, at the end of the day, these are all largely the same tool. There's some marginal differences between them, but the similarities are pretty overwhelming. All right, let's button these guys back up and then we can talk about all the things that we've learned. Before I go about putting these back together, let me give it a quick dusting. Oh yeah, this DCF 887 hasn't been running that well. It doesn't owe me anything, but if I can dust it out a little bit and make it work better, that'd be nice. All right, let's start with my #1 favorite tool, the DCF 886 Midnight Blackout Edition. There we go. Let's test this real quick. Hey, it actually seems to work a little bit better since I cleaned it. Throw a battery in there. Again, the trigger seems much more responsive since I cleaned it. So let that be a lesson to all you guys at home. If your trigger's messed up on your DeWalt tool, might need to be opened up and cleaned. And now last but not least, we have the Porter cable. Actually, you know what? Maybe it is the least. I think of all 4 of these drivers, this is probably my least favorite. Not that it's bad by any stretch of the imagination, but yeah, I don't see myself using this again. I'll find a nice like school or tool library to donate this to. So, at this point, I think that we can safely say that all 4 of these drivers are the same. Yes, Stanley Black & Decker has made some efforts to differentiate the models, but honestly, this just feels like the type of brand engineering that car companies used to do back in the day. Fun fact, my first car was a Pontiac Sunfire, which was basically the same car as the Chevrolet Cavalier. And then there was also the Dodge Neon, or should I say Plymouth Neon, or no, wait, maybe it was the Chrysler Neon. Yeah, they didn't even really try when it came to the Neon. So, why do companies do this and is it effective? Well, the short answer is they want to create different brands in order to market to different target audiences. You want to be able to market your products to Group A without worrying about alienating Group B. Sounds a little bit complicated, but let's use these tools as an example. Now, I'm speculating a bit here, but it is my belief that Craftsman tools are aimed more at homeowners, DIYers, and more occasional tool users, whereas DeWalt tools are aimed more at professionals and tradespeople. Now, tradespeople are a fickle bunch. I should know because I am one, but if all of a sudden DeWalt started advertising their tools towards homeowners, it could potentially turn off some tradespeople. The DeWalt tool brand would kind of lose its air of professional status by marketing to non-professionals. It's silly at the end of the day. Like, the only thing that should matter is what the tools are capable of, but you can see where they're coming from. Like, human beings are a notoriously fickle bunch. Again, I should know because I am one. We are ruled by our emotions and our perceptions of things. So yes, I do feel like brand engineering is an effective tactic. That doesn't mean that I like it, but I do understand at least why companies do it. I think I should point out at this point in the video that I don't want to make this video come across like I'm picking on Stanley Black & Decker, because they are not the only company that's doing it. In fact, I found this fun infographic that you can see here that shows which tool brands are owned by which tool companies. As you can see, there are not nearly as many players in the game as you might have originally thought. Now, with all of that being said, I don't know that this is a particularly effective example of brand engineering. Like, yeah, I get the split that's going on between DeWalt and Craftsman, but then where does Porter Cable fit into the mix? And what about Black & Decker, Stanley Fatmax, and Bostitch, or Bostitch, or however you say it? It's all just getting a little crowded for my taste. And personally, I just don't think they're doing enough to differentiate these products. You really have to ask yourself, why bother when your products are this similar? It's to the point where I think it's really got more to do with appeasing different retail partners than it is about finding the right target audience. I also think, largely speaking, low-effort brand engineering is on the decline too. You see this so clearly in the aforementioned auto industry. Back in the day, a Lincoln was a Ford with leather seats. Nowadays, they share a lot of the same underpinnings in order to save on costs, but a Lincoln SUV is a significantly different beast than a Ford SUV. You also see a lot of automakers eliminating brands that don't have a very strong identity. RIP Mercury, Plymouth, Pontiac, Saab, Saturn. Who else did we lose lately? Oh man, it's just so many casualties.
Look at what they let you give.
I think all of this is happening because consumers are becoming much more savvy. We've got things like the internet and YouTube to point out when manufacturers are simply just swapping the badges on things and calling it an entirely new product. So it is my hope that tool brands will follow the lead of auto brands. Clean up your product and your brand stacks a little bit, spend more time differentiating the brands that you do keep, and maybe, just maybe, allow for a little bit of cross-platform pollination. But that's a different video for a different day. And on that note, I think we are done with this video. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it informative. And if you did, and you'd like to support the channel, consider becoming a supporter on Patreon, like these fine folks over here and over here. If you want to get any one of these drivers, I will include some links to them in the video description. And of course, as always, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace. Oh, and I should also mention, for all you Off the Cut fans out there, that's my podcast. Oh, drop my keys. We now have the official Off the Cut windbreaker. I know we've been joking about sending these out to all the callers, all the people who send in questions. Me and Eric actually got them made up. I think they look pretty awesome. I got this in camo, but it's available in a whole bunch of different colors. I'm 6'2", I'm rocking a large right now, so there's your sizing for scale. All right, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.